It was one of those cold evenings that seemed to carry the weight of the world in the air. The kind where people hurry past each other, too busy to notice who's struggling, or who's silently falling apart. Mark hadn't planned on changing anyone's life that night. He was just trying to survive his own. A single dad, 2 jobs, and a small, worn-down house barely holding together. Mark knew what it meant to live on the edge. So when a quiet girl showed up at his door, asking for a room she could barely afford, he didn't see a stranger. He saw someone who needed a chance. And sometimes, a small act of kindness can unlock a story you never expected. Before we begin, take a moment to support the channel. If stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps keep these meaningful stories alive. Mark Reynolds lived in a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of a busy American city. His house wasn't much peeling paint, creaky floors, and a heater that worked only when it felt like it, but it was home. More importantly, it was where his 8-year-old son, Tyler, felt safe. Ever since Mark's wife passed away 3 years ago, life had been a constant uphill climb. Every dollar mattered. Every decision counted. That's why renting out the spare room wasn't just an idea, it was a necessity. He had posted a simple ad online: room for rent. Affordable. Quiet home. Most responses he got were either unreliable or demanding. But one message stood out. It was short and polite. "Hi, my name is Emily. I really need a place. I can pay a little now and more later. Please let me know if we can talk." Mark almost ignored it. But something about the message felt honest. So he replied. Emily showed up the next day. She looked young, maybe early 20s, with tired eyes that didn't match her age. Her clothes were clean but clearly worn. A simple backpack rested on her shoulders, and she clutched it like it held everything she owned. "Hi. I'm Emily," she said softly. Mark nodded. "Come in." As she stepped inside, she looked around quietly, almost like she was afraid to take up too much space. They sat at the small kitchen table. "I should be honest," she said, her voice steady but nervous. "I don't have much money right now. I can give you part of the rent this week, and I promise I'll find work quickly." Mark leaned back, studying her. He'd heard promises before. Most didn't mean much. But there was something different about her. No arrogance. No excuses. Just quiet determination. Tyler peeked from behind the hallway wall, watching her curiously. Mark sighed. "All right," he said. "You can stay." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yeah. But you help around the house when you can. Deal?" She nodded quickly. "Deal. Thank you, really." And just like that, a stranger became part of their home. The first few days were quiet. Emily kept to herself mostly. She left early in the morning and returned late, clearly searching for work. But she always made time to help washing dishes, fixing small things, even helping Tyler with his homework. One evening, Mark walked into the living room and saw Tyler laughing. Really laughing. It had been a while. Emily sat beside him, helping him build a small science project. Her face lit up in a way Mark hadn't seen before. "See," she said to Tyler. "You just needed to try a different way." Tyler beamed. "You're really smart." Emily smiled softly. "I just learned the hard way." Mark stood there for a moment, unnoticed. For the first time in a long time, the house felt warm. Weeks passed. Emily found a small job at a local cafe. It didn't pay much, but she never complained. She paid her share of rent, even when it was clearly difficult. But there was one thing Mark noticed. Every night, after everyone slept, Emily would sit at the kitchen table with a small red USB drive plugged into an old laptop. She would stare at the screen for hours. Sometimes typing. Sometimes just thinking. Mark didn't ask. It wasn't his business. But he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story. One night, during a heavy storm, the power went out. The house went dark. Tyler got scared, so Mark lit a few candles and sat with him until he fell asleep. When Mark walked into the kitchen, he saw Emily sitting there, holding the red USB in her hand. She looked shaken. "You okay?" Mark asked gently. She hesitated. Then, for the first time, she opened up. "This isn't just a USB," she said quietly. Mark sat across from her. "It holds everything," she continued. "Documents, accounts, proof, things my father built." Mark frowned slightly. "Your father?" Emily took a deep breath. "He's a billionaire." The room fell silent. Mark blinked. "Wait, what?" "I ran away," she said. "Not because I wanted money or freedom, but because I wanted to live my own life. Without being controlled." She looked down at her hands. "He didn't believe in me. He thought I'd fail without his money." Mark leaned forward. "And this USB? It's access to everything. My inheritance. His company shares. All of it." Mark sat back, stunned. "So, you're not broke?" Emily shook her head slowly. "I chose to be." "Why?" "Because I needed to know who I am, without all of that." Her eyes filled with emotion. "And you," she looked at Mark, "you treated me with kindness when I had nothing. You didn't ask questions. You didn't judge me." Mark didn't know what to say. He just shrugged lightly. "Everyone needs help sometimes." The next morning changed everything. A line of black cars pulled up outside the house. Men in suits stepped out. Tyler watched from the window. "Dad, are we in trouble?" Mark stepped outside, confused. One of the men approached. "Mr. Reynolds?" he asked. "Yes. Mr. Harrison would like to speak with you." Before Mark could respond, another car door opened. A tall, sharply dressed man stepped out. Emily's father. He looked at the house, then at Mark. "You let her stay here?" he asked, his voice cold. Mark crossed his arms. "She needed a place." The man scoffed. "Do you have any idea who she is?" "Yeah," Mark replied calmly. "She's someone trying to figure out her life." The man paused. That wasn't the answer he expected. Emily stepped outside then. "Dad," she said firmly. He turned to her. "You've made your point. Come home." She shook her head. "No. Not like this." There was tension in the air. Then she did something unexpected. She walked over to Mark. "This man," she said, "showed me more respect and kindness in a few weeks than I've felt in years." Her father's expression shifted slightly. "You taught me success means power," she continued. "But he showed me it means heart." Silence. Heavy, real silence. Days later, everything changed again. But not in the way Mark expected. Emily didn't leave immediately. Instead, she stayed a little longer finishing what she started. Helping Tyler. Working her job. Living simply. Until one day, she packed her bag. "I have to go," she said softly. Tyler hugged her tightly. "Will you come back?" She smiled. "Always." She turned to Mark. "Thank you, for treating me like I mattered when I had nothing to offer." Mark shook his head. "You always had something to offer." She smiled. Then she left. Months passed. Life returned to normal. Bills, work, routine. But something had changed. The house felt different. Lighter. Warmer. Then one afternoon, A letter arrived. Inside was a note. Kindness changes everything. You proved that. And beneath it, documents. The house was paid off. A college fund for Tyler. And a small investment that secured Mark's future. No strings attached. No expectations. Just gratitude. Mark sat on the porch that evening, watching the sunset with Tyler. "Dad," Tyler said, "why did you help her?" Mark smiled. "Because sometimes, people don't need money," he said. "They just need someone to believe in them." Tyler nodded slowly. "I want to be like that." Mark placed a hand on his shoulder. "You already are." Kindness doesn't always come back in the way you expect. Sometimes it comes back quietly. Sometimes it changes a life you never thought you'd touch. And sometimes it reminds someone who they really are. So the next time you have a chance to help someone, no matter how small it seems, take it. Because you never know. You might just be changing a story forever.